I have to go into podcast character and switch my voice here in a minute, but it's all right. So, say again? Oh, I have to buy some time. So, since Lance likes my jokes so much, I should tell some more jokes. But really, I'm excited about this next session because Emergo, many of you probably have heard of Emergo. The content that they put out is amazing and really good stuff. They have their finger on the pulse about what's going on certainly from a regulatory perspective, as well as a quality perspective. We heard the gentleman from Emergo share a little bit ago. They've got offices on 6 continents. I wonder when they're going to get their Antarctica office. When you do, let us know, because that's the only continent we're missing too. So, but it's a lot of things are happening in the regulatory world today. Certainly some changes, I think, in the right direction from an FDA perspective. A lot of changes happening in the EU, and who better to bring up to talk about that than Evangeline Loh from Emergo? So please come on stage. I guess I'll just, yeah, sure.
Wonderful, thank you.
All right, so before we dive in and start chatting about regulatory things, I guess give some people a little bit of background about who you are. I mean, you're famous, right? Everybody reads your stuff.
I don't know about that, but this is probably my first podcast, so I'm thinking I've arrived just like almost at TikTok, if you know the reference. So I'm starting to feel a little bit younger and hipper, so I'm feeling positive.
But you and I know this, but very few others know this, but our professional careers crossed paths once upon a time about 15 years ago. So I was leaving a company, and she'd been there for a few months before I left, and it was really cool to get to connect with you, quite a few years later. And I've been a huge fan of your writing, and you put the regulatory framework and content in a way that I think is, maybe I'm a little bit of an advanced person here on this topic, but it's in a way that's digestible, and I really appreciate that. So thank you for that.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. I mean, clearly we're here because we love regulatory compliance, and we wouldn't be doing this on a daily basis. And I think we're excited that there are medical device manufacturers out there who are excited about their mission, and we're all passionate about, ultimately patients and patient lives and improving.
Yeah, for sure. So I think the big elephant in the room from a regulatory perspective is EU MDR. To a little bit of a lesser extent, only because we got a little bit more time, the IVDR stuff. But I guess give people an update or sort of an overview synopsis of EU MDR and timing and all that sort of thing. That's probably a good place to start.
Yeah, but I mean that's something that we love to wax philosophical about. And I think when we were originally invited to speak, we asked, well, do we have 4 hours or do we have 5 hours? So we're going to do our high level.
Neither 4 hours or 5 hours, so just, it's all right.
So to give you kind of the high level synopsis, I think we all know that the date of application of the medical device regulation is the 26th of May, 2020, so coming up very soon. But I think since then, or before then, I think we all recognize that there have been a few kind of additional pieces of legislation that have changed things. So we heard that, and this is not legislation per se, but we heard from the European Commission that the European database, UNIMED, has been delayed. So in November of 2019, they indicated that UNIMED would be postponed, they expected until May 2022. They didn't describe further what that meant in terms of the delay and when the actual verification validation would occur. But if you're familiar with the MDR, you know that it says that the entire UNIMED system has to be released in its entirety, all the modules. So there's no concept of piecemeal modules released for this European database. So that's something, if you are familiar with the legislation, you know how fundamental that is to everything that's related to medical device legislation, because it describes kind of the registration system. So all the medical devices that need to be registered in this database. It describes all the registration of economic operators. So these are all the critical players in the kind of the medical device ecosystem, the manufacturer, the authorized representative, the importer, and the distributor, and so forth and so on. So, kind of registering clinical investigations and everything else. Vigilance, vigilance information in the database. So all this is now delayed until May 2022. And it's pretty significant ramifications on the medical device regulation if you think about the fact that the date of application is coming up and so much is related to this upcoming deadline. So that was fairly significant news. I think the next thing that was kind of a welcome reprieve for all of us was what we call Core Agenda 2. And that was also kind of announced in November of 2019. And essentially the idea was, if you are currently a Class 1 self-certified medical device to the Medical Device Directive, and you are up-classified by the Medical Device Regulation, which essentially means that you need a certification from an MDR designated notified body, you effectively have until May 2024. So you had until 26 May 2024. So essentially granting you the same timeline for transition as legacy devices. So if we're all familiar with the medical device regulation, we know that legacy devices, according to Article 123, says that medical devices with the notified body issued MDDC marking certificate have until 24 May 2024 in order to be compliant from the device aspects to the medical device regulation. So effectively now, all these Class 1 self-certified MDD medical devices that are up-classified, so think all your reusable surgical instruments that are currently Class 1 self-certified or Rule 6, these all have until May 2024 to get an MDR, and notified body MDR select.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy. It's a lot there, right? So I guess the thing that I want you all to understand is it's complicated, right? It's as much as you hope that it's simple. I mean, there's twists and turns and nuances. So get a hold of somebody like Evangeline, or talk to a regulatory consultant or somebody who really knows their stuff on EU MDR, knows all these different nuances, because if the European market is important to you and you don't know these things, you could be hosed. That's the technical term. But,
I think it would be fair to say that we're all kind of walking this walk. I mean, there's a lot of, I guess we'd like to say certainty, but there's a lot of uncertainty right now. And I think we're all experiencing that. And I think to give you an example, this whole UNIMED thing, this delay. So this is, to common authorities now, they're all scrambling because they now own these systems, because on the day of application, all medical devices which are Class 1 self-certified to the medical device regulation need to be compliant to the medical device regulation if they want to continue to be marketing. So these corporate authorities now are all scrambling as well to ensure that they have the systems in order to have these devices registered. And so it's not just medical device manufacturers, it's everyone in the entire enterprise.
Yeah, I mean, it is an ecosystem challenge. I mean, I can't remember off the top of my head. You probably know. I'm sure you can probably cite them all, but number of notified bodies. That's been a concern from folks too. So where do we sit today?
So with the MDR, there are currently 11 notified bodies that have been designated to the MDR, and that's pretty low if you think about it.
But dramatically higher than what it was just a few months ago.
So the EU Commission has continually published reports and indicated that there's a lot of notified bodies that will be soon to be designated. But the whole designation process has taken a lot longer than everyone's expected and anticipated. And if you want to keep up with this, I think there's a database called NANDO, and in NANDO they publish all the bodies that have been notified to the different European legislations. And that's where you can kind of monitor.
Yeah, so check out Nando. It's Nando. I think if you just Google Nando, you'll get it. Yeah. But 11 notified bodies. I mean, let's be real. I mean, I've heard stories from folks that some of the notified bodies that are certified to MDR, they're not taking new clients. They're not answering phone calls. So what are people supposed to do?
So that's a great question, and it's one that I think everyone is concerned about. Is if you're a new manufacturer and you currently don't have an identified notified body, how do you navigate that? environment. And I think that's a legitimate challenge, and I don't think anyone has a great answer to that at this time. I think, we're kind of at the mercy of notified bodies who have been designated to the MDR, if you indeed need to be MDR compliant after the date of application. I think there's still a question, are you a class 1 self-certified MDD medical device that's unclassified? And then those, because we do know that there are a few of those manufacturers, they're scrambling to get their products on the market before May 26th, compliant to the MDD, so they can benefit from this core addendum 2 kind of transition time.
So I know you said some of those dates earlier, but it might be good to use like a kind of an example to kind of illustrate why there would be an advantage for a company to get the MDD certification now before May 2020. Remind us, what is that? Why would I want to do that?
So there are probably two scenarios. So in the first case, let's say you are currently a medical device that requires a notified body MDD marking certificate. If you can indeed engage a notified body who will be willing to review and confer to you an MDD marking certificate before May, you can capitalize on the concept of being a legacy device and use Article 123 and continue to market with your MDD marking certificate until 26 May 2024. But you have to have that MDD, the notified body issued MDD marking certificate. In the other scenario, if you are an MDD unclassified medical device, so a good example for a lot of manufacturers is the Rule 12 software products. So currently, if you review Annex 9 of the Medical Device Directive to look at the classification criteria, and you'll know that software, of course, needs to review the active devices, and then a lot of software gets classified as Rule 12, probably Class 1 self-certified. So if you're under that condition, under the MDR within Annex 8, which is the classification criteria, there's now Rule 11, which deals with software. And with that rule, you're automatically Class 2A for software. So if you can demonstrate that your MDD is Class 1 self-certified, and you can get your product on the market before 26 May 2020, so the next few months, it's an MDD, then you have also, based on Core Agenda 2, you also have until 26 May 2024 to secure a notified body issued MDR marking certificate. And there's some conditions related to that we need to adhere to.
Yeah, so it's potentially a good opportunity, to kind of beat the clock, so to speak.
It is, and it's wonderful, but there isn't a huge amount of time. And if you're currently looking to get a notified body to issue a marking certificate to the MDD, there's not a tremendous amount of time, and not all notified bodies are willing to take new MDD clients.
Because they're not going to continue with the MDR, or what?
Because for both scenarios, because they're not going to continue to the MDR, and they want to start preparing for MDR marking. So under the two.
All right. So there's another thing that's kind of interesting to me, that a twist that in all this, in addition to the things that you've already shared, is Brexit. Any thoughts on Brexit and how this can impact everything that's happening in the EU?
So I think if you're familiar with Brexit and you were monitoring it, for 2019 it was kind of the year of, will Brexit happen? Will there be push edge Brexit? Brexit, no Brexit, what's going on? So we finally realized and heard that in January of this year that Brexit occurred. So the UK is formally out of the European Union, but they have until the end of this year to kind of negotiate and describe the terms of that kind of Brexit exit. So at this point, I think we'd say that we don't really have additional details about what Brexit looks like and what the UK legislation really looks like. And we know that they're scrambling to develop their legislation, and whether they'll have kind of a similar mutual recognition the way kind of Switzerland, Norway, Iceland, Liechtenstein does is yet to be seen. So there's a lot of different scenarios under discussion. We know the UK regulators in the MDR area are under tremendous pressure because they've had some previous Brexit guidance on their website, and they quickly pulled back, I think a few weeks ago. So we know they're under tremendous pressure because the UK represents a huge market. And I think we all know that last year in 2019, a lot of the notified bodies that were based in the UK, so MHRA was kind of their designated authority, they all went and established offices in kind of the more, in the EU 27, less the UK. So, BSI, which is the notified body, there's now BSI Netherlands. And so a lot of the UK-based notified bodies now have EU enterprises. And a lot of manufacturers were given the opportunity to switch to those notified bodies. And a good majority of them have done so. So in that sense, that's been a relief, the fact that they're now with non-UK-based notified bodies. But I think we're still very actively monitoring what Brexit means to medical device manufacturers. Like, if you kind of were aware in 2019, one of the scenarios that are being encountered is now you also need a UK representative. So in order to market in the UK, you need a UK representative. So you need a European authorized representative if your manufacturer is not established in the EU. And then similarly, in order to market in the UK, you would need a UK representative. So it's a little bit from a kind of a regulatory regime perspective, it's a little unfortunate because it represents a little additional work and potentially duplication. So
yeah, and at the same time, MHRA, like I've always had such great experience in working with MHRA. I feel that they are, on par with FDA.
I think that's been I think the device industry probably agrees that the MHRA, they try to take a very practical approach. They're very pragmatic in their kind of view of medical device classification, medical device legislation, and they realize, yes, legislation is important, regulations are important, but there's also, a business practical aspect to everything. So they're not as fastidious as some of the common authorities, which I won't name, but they're not as fastidious and kind of bureaucratically administrative to the point where there's no conceivable benefit. And so I think that's been one of the, if you monitor any of the European kind of groups and activities, you'll know that the MHRA, that they have a voice in all these European groups and all these expert meetings. And so it's really a little bit of a disappointment that they're no longer formally part of the EU. And I think we saw that with medicinal products as well, where the EMA moved, offices from the UK. And that's kind of represents a slight demise to everyone that's happened.
Yeah, I think there are some folks in medical device companies who believe that there's still going to be a delay in the implementation of EU MDR. All right, I kind of, your laugh tells me how you feel, but I guess, what do you think? Is there going to be any kind of delay?
If I could prognosticate, I would. And we have not heard anything about this delay. But then we have to be candid. I think Core Addendum 2 was also a very pleasant surprise to everyone. I think that was a little unexpected. So I think it's a great question. Will there be a delay? And I think, Greenlight Group did that 2020 medical device survey, and it indicated that 80% of the representatives said, medical device representatives said they weren't prepared for the MDR. And I think another thing that we haven't really spoken about, which is, for the large majority of legacy devices that will be on the market after the date of application, there's still tremendous discussion, at least what we observed, between notified bodies on what exactly applies to a legacy device. So if you review Article 123, it says that certain provisions of the MDR apply, like post-market surveillance, vigilance, etc. But it doesn't really state, do Articles 10 through 15 on the economic operator's responsibilities apply? So there's a big question. As a manufacturer, do you need to have a person responsible for regulatory compliance on the date of application to get a legacy device? And so there's still a lot of really interesting unanswered questions. And even, some of the notified bodies don't have consistent policies about this yet. And so that's one of the things we're hoping for is, in the next few weeks, months, that there's a little bit more consensus statements on some of these questions.
Yeah, as I say, it's a hot mess right now. Any other thoughts that you think are important to the audience? I think I'm looking for one of my colleagues. But any other thoughts that you have before we maybe take a few questions from folks in the audience?
I mean, we're really passionate about regulatory affairs, and I think we say that it's important to kind of monitor and understand what's happening, because it's ever evolving and changing, and we can't prognosticate, and perhaps there will be a delay on the MDR. I mean, we don't know.
But if you're planning for a delay and it doesn't happen, then...
That's a fair point. So also be realistic and understand all the timelines and the deadlines. They are unfair.
All right, so some great insights, and some of you might have some questions about what's going on in the EU, or I guess it doesn't matter. Evangeline is a worldwide regulatory expert, so if there's some other market you're curious about, it's free opportunity to ask her your most interesting question about regulatory. So I'm going to put her on the spot.
Hi, we have a brand new startup, so we'll be a brand new company like an SCE Mart, and we just decided to ignore MDR because it was scary and focus on that first. But if right now we started thinking, all right, we want to get a MDR certified and go to Europe, what do I tell my board of directors is the timeline? Class 2.
Class 2, yes. No, that makes a difference. So it's the product is a medical device that, based on its risk, is going to require MDR designated notified body. And so if you had to tell your board of directors what the timeline is, I think the first public comment we made is it's important now to start engage a notified body that has been designated to the MDR, so one of these 11 notified bodies, or a notified body that you expect to be designated very soon. So that's probably the first part of the discussion, because based on that discussion, they will provide some estimated timelines of what their queue is like. So all these notified bodies also will have legacy prices on the data application. So they'll all have all these manufacturers that they currently have with MDD issued CE marking certificates that will need to be kind of transitioned to the MDR, and will need MDR certificates before 26 May 2024. So you're in queue with those manufacturers. So it would be important to kind of identify a few notified bodies and start talking with them for what their timelines are. And unfortunately, we can't really anticipate now what that time frame is, because notified bodies, as we're saying, they're really kind of, they're also a little backlogged.
Yeah. Maybe I'll ask a slight variant on the question. So, assuming I have the conversation with my notified body and I understand their timeline to get into the queue, once I start with them on the process, do we have any sense of going through the whole notified body, tech file review, all that entire process? Do we have any sense of if it's longer or about the same as before?
I think a fair assumption would be that it's going to be longer, because they're going to be more vigorous through the MDR certification process. So you'll probably, even though it's not mandatory per se for the MDR, you'll probably elect to be compliant to EN ISO 13485 2016. So you'll first have your quality management system kind of certified by the notified body. And then after that, you'll have the notified body review your technical documentation. So there's two phases to the process, and they can be simultaneous. Certainly, as Jon has indicated, the reviews can be more vigorous. And we've already seen that with notified bodies currently, in reviewing to the MDD, that they are more rigorous in their reviews, and particularly with clinical evaluation reports. So that's one of the documents that kind of compiles all your clinical data into one submission. And we've really seen notified bodies scrutinize these documents now. And so the magnitude of the reviews is pretty tremendous. And even for what we feel are relatively low risk class 2A devices. So it is really a very interesting time. And so it's important to start engaging those notified bodies and have those discussions to understand, yes, will they accept new clients, and what is their time frame and timeline.
All right, that's a great question. Any other questions from the audience? going once. Oh, here we go.
Hi there. I think my question can be pretty big. Yeah, I know. So can you have been talking about the MDR all the time already, but can you tell me a little bit more about IVDR? Because right now we're still using the IVDD. So the IVDD will no longer going to be available in the future. So instead it's going to be IVDR. Can you kind of give me a few bullet points of the difference between IVDR and IVDD, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So the IVDD, of course, is the current legislation for in vitro diagnostic devices. In vitro the IVDR applies, so its date of application is 26 May 2020. So 2 years from now, which is why John said that 2024. Yeah, 2020. I'm sorry. So 2022. So most people haven't been really speaking about the IVD. And if you look at the number of notified bodies that have been designated to IVDR, there's only 3 currently. So 3 notified bodies. And so one of the significant differences between the IVDD and the IVDR is the classification system. So with IVDD, as you appreciate, the majority of the products are probably self-certified IVDDs because they weren't explicitly delineated on Annex 2 List A or List B, and they weren't self-testing for use by a layperson in the home environment. So the majority of IVDDs are self-certified, which means that they have no oversight by a notified body, that they're self-certified by the manufacturer. And so one of the significant differences between the IVDD and the IVDR is now 80% of devices that were previously self-certified now require a notified body issue IVDR certificate. And so if you think about the magnitude of that, that represents a tremendous amount of additional regulatory review by these bodies, which didn't previously exist. And so one of the, again, with notified bodies and notified body researchers, that being their concern, that's going to be a tremendous activity now for all these IVDDs that are now up-classified because of the IVDR, and now we need a notified body that's been designated to IVDR to review the product before they can be marketed. So if we're talking about product classification, I think very analogous to current support agenda 2 for the MDR, there is a potential opportunity for some kind of delay, similarly with the IVDR, for products which are currently self-certified IVDDs that are up-classified by the IVDR. Just based on, if you look at the volume of products that now need a notified body that's been designated to the IVDR, that certificate, it seems logical that there's going to be some type of legislative delay. If you had a problem.
Yeah, and I don't know how to answer this, but my suspicion is the majority of companies or entities that would now be under the regulations of IVDR don't even know it yet.
I think that's also kind of similar with medical devices and MDR, is that a good part of what we hope to do and know that we're doing is kind of educating the community, just so that everyone's aware that, look, these legislations, the deadlines are approaching and they impact all products. So everyone's impacted. Regardless of your classification, there's just a different timeline based on your classification.
Good point. All right, so any other questions for Evangeline or me on EU MDR or anything else that's on your mind? All right, well, help me in thanking Evangeline Loh, Vice President of Regulatory Affairs. This is Jon Speer. I don't even know what I say now. I can't even do it. And you have been listening to the Global Medical Device Podcast, but do be sure to go check it out. As Nick shared earlier, it's the #1 podcast in the medical device industry. So download it something like 300,000 times. If you don't need an iPhone, you can have any kind of phone. You can go to SoundCloud. You can go to iTunes. Anywhere you're listening to podcasts, you'll be able to find it. Global Medical Device Podcast. So again, thank you all so much. I think there's still a little bit of time for maybe a few glasses of wine or something, but a little bit of time to catch up. Maybe go meet that person that you haven't had a chance to talk to. But again, thank you so much for joining us at the True Quality Roadshow Houston version. Thank you.